Hello friends, this is Ganesh and video number 2 on ABAP. In this session, I'm going to explain about what is static and what is instance. So it can be applicable for a variable as well as a method. And what are all different method parameters like import, export, changing and returning, call by value, call by reference, optional. So all these I'm going to explain on this particular video. Okay, let's get into that video. So first is static. So static means it's just a single copy for a class, meaning it's going to be occupy a same memory for the entire class. Okay, you might aware of the static variable probably in C. Once you declared and the value is going to be same throughout the program. Okay, even if you declared inside the subroutine or inside the what do you call as form, locally if you declare a static variable, so the value is going to be same, or wherever you change it will be reflect all over the place wherever the particular static variable is used. So the same concept you're going to use it over here as well. So static is a single copy for a class. So if you change from anywhere in the class, it automatically reflects wherever it's getting used. So the simple diagram is going to be access one memory. So if you change through a class, it's a static variable can be accessed through a class or an object. So if you're going to access through a class, yes, it gets changed, and through an object also it will get changed. So if you change, for example, class is changed by 10, object 1 is changed by 20, and if you print object 2, you will get the value of 20. Okay, because it's going to be a single copy of a class. So that is the basic idea of static. And instance is nothing but, okay, before going to instance, few properties of static. So static attributes can be accessed by object or a class. So you have an option to access anything but read or write, whatever it is. Attribute, I'm talking about the attribute or variable. So if you want to assign a value, make with the help of object also you can do it, or directly using a class also you can do it. And it can be used either in a static or instance method. Okay, so a particular static attribute can be accessed inside any of the method. It can be a static method or an instance method, no restrictions. If you come to a static method, it can be also accessed by an object or by class name directly. And there is a restriction inside a method. Inside a method, only static attribute can be used inside a method. Okay, so here static attribute can be used in static or instant method. Here this is for the method. So method level, inside a method only static attributes are able to access. If you try to access instance method, you will get an error. And only static method can be called inside. Suppose it's like nested method, right? So inside a method I want to call a method. In that is the case, also make sure you're going to call only the static method, not an instance method. Okay, so I will give all the examples and see what kind of error we are getting. This is about static. Clear? And instance is nothing but multiple copies. So you might guess now based on the previous diagram. So now every object has its own space. So in that space or in that particular instance only your attribute or the scope of your attribute is going to be available. For example, like this. So I have three different objects for a class. So every object has its own space. So if I change the value of using object 1, the value of an instance variable is 10, it's not going to affect object 2 or object 3 because it's going to be a multiple copies. Instance is nothing but a multiple copies, and it's a different space is going to be available. So that is the difference mainly between static and instant. Single copy and it's a multiple copies in your class. And the attributes are accessed only by object. Instance variable are accessed only by object, not through a class name. And it can be used only in the instance method, because the previous slide I explained static method accepts only static variables. So it won't accept the instance variables. That's what I mentioned over here. It can be used only in the instance method. And method is accessed only by object, same like attribute, because instance in the sense it needs an object to access. And this particular method accepts both instant and static attribute can be used inside the method. So inside an instance method, you can have a static attribute, you can have an instant attribute, but in a static method, it can have only static attributes. And both instance and static methods can be called inside a method. So meaning nested methods. So inside a instance method, you are able to call another instance method or another static method. So you don't have any restriction. But in a static method, you are able to call only other static methods only. So these are a little idea about static and instance. It's very simple. So single copy, multiple copies. Clear? And another area which we are going to see about the method parameters. There are 5 method parameters. I ignoring one for this particular session, that is called exceptions. Once I take the exception, I come back to the exception concept in method parameters as well. So today we are going to see importing, exporting, changing and returning. So you are able to make it with the symbol. Importing is you are receiving the value inside your method. Exporting, you are sending the information back to the program or wherever whoever is calling your method. And changing is a two-way communication. You are receiving as well as send the updated value to back to the program through the same medium, means through the same variable. And returning is also similar like exporting. We'll see little difference between exporting and returning. Returning is also sending the information back to your program, means outside of your method. So the properties are, so importing is only one, you're receiving the information. You can have more than one import variables. It can be a call by value, it can be a call by reference, whatever. So whatever need based on the business requirement. And exporting is also more than one parameters. You can go with call by reference or call by value. And changing is also similar, more than one parameter is possible, reference or value. Returning is only one parameter is possible. You're not able to have more than one return value in a method, and only call by value, call by reference is not possible. Then what is the need of returning is the method is always returns only one value after all the manipulations or calculations. Better go with the return parameter. No need of export parameters. Okay. There are some changes in the syntax, so like it's directly get the value to the variable, and LB EC is always returning only one parameter. So a lot of advantages depends on your requirement, again I'm saying. Okay, so these are the different properties of importing, exporting, changing and returning. Clear? Exception I will take quite later after I complete the exception concept in ABAP. So let me take you to the system. This is my system. Let's create a new program. Executable, save it, local object. So you know the properties of static and instance, right? So static, it just carries the value throughout the class because it's a single copy for the class. So depends on your requirement. You can decide what kind of attribute or what kind of method is required. Either it is a static or it is a instance. Okay, let's have my public section, and I'm going to create a instant variable. I can say attribute because the technical term we used attribute, class attribute kind of. So instance attribute, type integer, and I'm going to create a static attribute. So the syntax to create a static attribute is class data, and this is static attribute type I. So we'll see one by one. Okay, and I need some methods over here. So first I'm going to create methods, and okay, instance method. There is no parameters. Let's complete the static and instance, then we'll go with parameters for the methods. Next I'm going to create a static method. Syntax is class hyphen methods. Okay, so static method. Okay, so now these two methods to be implement in the the implementation part in class. So here I'm going to implement first method instance method in method, and then method static method end method. Okay, that's it. So just an empty one because I want to show you how the static and instant attributes are carrying the value. So that's why I'm just keeping the methods empty now. I'm going to call and access the value, assign a value outside of the class. So both are public under the public section. So let me add a starter selection. As you aware of this, after processing block, if you need any executable statement, you have to use startup selection. So I need to create an object for my instance. So let me create an object with new syntax class underscore 2 dot. Okay. So now I'm going to access the static attribute. So let me have two objects. You can create n number of objects for your class, depends on your requirement and need. And now what I'm going to do is using the class, I'm going to access my attributes. So now first I will show you the access of the attributes. So using class name, I'm going to access the static attribute. So that is possible. And using the object name, I'm going to access the static attribute. So if it is an object, just a single arrow is fine. Static attribute equal to 20. Okay, so control F2. There is a spelling mistake. Attribute. Okay, so no syntax error. The idea is static attribute can be accessed using a class name or an object. Okay, so that is the idea first. So next, methods. I'm going to call the static method using class name. Yes, it's good. Yeah. And I'm going to using an object to call a static method. Let's see, F2, yes, good. Now I'm going to call or access instance method. Okay, let's go with attribute, instance attribute. Okay, equal to 20. It's get an error because instance method or instance attribute to be accessed only using object, not with class. So that is a issue over here. So if I do the same for instance method, we comment this, and only it will give an issue for the next line. So it's a class method can only be specified with static methods. Okay, because this is not a static. So instance attribute or instance method to be called using an object. So that is mandatory or basic idea. Single. So we are good now. So now you are good with the access. So how we can access it? Okay. So static attribute accessed by class and objects. Okay. Same thing for method. Static method can called or accessed by class and objects, class name and objects, but instance attribute and method to be accessed only through object. So this is a very basic rule about static and instance attribute or method, whatever it is. Now I'm going to show you how the statics behaves. So you're going to modify, you're going to access with different sources, right? So static is open. Through class name you can access, through object you can access. Now I have one class name and two objects, okay? So now what I'm going to do is, let me comment this. Okay, so first what I'm going to do is, I'm going to access my attribute, static attribute with a class name, so equal to 100. Okay, and I'm going to write the same attribute using an object. So write static attribute. So static is sharing, or it's available in a single for the class, is meaning you can, just for your reference, you can say there is only one memory space, it's occupy the entire instance or entire class. So whenever you are changing the value, it's reflect wherever or with respect of any object or class, it will be same. Okay, so now edit again, there is a spelling mistake. So I'm assigning a value through class and I'm trying to display the value through an object. So if it is a static, the value is same. Okay. And now if I change the value with object 2, so object 2 of static attribute is equal to 200. And if I say write either through class or through the same or different objects, so object 1, so the value is remains same, means the updated value, the recently updated value is carry forward everywhere to the static attribute. So the latest modified value for the static attribute is 200, so that is going to be reflect everywhere. So here it is. Got it? So this is the use of static. Now I'm going to do a instance. So instance can be called only through object. So instance attribute equal to 100. So this value is applicable, or the scope of this value only available in this object instance. Okay, in the object period I can say. So if you outside of this object, if you're going to add the value or it's going to retrieve the value, so it won't reflect the latest one, because this is applicable only within the object scope. Okay, so the value, the answer would be 0, because for object 2 I didn't assign any value to the instance attribute, so it's 0 over here. Okay, so now if we say object 1 instance attribute, now it's a 0 and 100. This is from object 2, this is from object 1. So is it clear about the static and instance? So depends on your requirement. If you feel I want to keep my data or my value only for the object level, go with the instance. So if you feel no, the data or the data should be available throughout the class irrespective of any object, then go ahead with the static attribute. Okay. So next is method level. So let me go to the method. Inside an instance method, you can have your static attribute equal to 10, instance attribute equal to 20. So we are good, no syntax error. If you do the same in static, you'll get error, because static method accepts only static variable. I'll get an error. Within a static method, only static attributes can be accessed without specifying further information. Okay, so just do like this. So now there is no error. Static method accepts only static attribute. One more point, if you want to call a method, another method, for example, let me have one more method, instant method 2. And static method 2. Okay. Now I'm going to call a method inside a method. Okay. I'm going to introduce a you can say keyword or reference variable, whatever it is. The keyword is me. okay, or reference variable is me. So me is a reference variable which is going to refer the same class. Me is nothing but it's going to refer the same class. You don't want to create an object to call the same method within the class method. Okay, so the same within the class you have two methods. So I want to call method 1 inside method 2 or method 2 inside method 1. You don't want to create an object for it. So object is basically for accessing a class property outside of the class. But now I want to call any of the method within the same method or within the class implementation. So you don't want any object. By default, you have a reference variable called me. Okay, so that is the idea of me. So now I'm going to call a method using a me variable. So me hyphen, let me call instance method 2. Method 2. Okay, and I'm going to call static method 2. Okay, so okay, this is a very basic one. Whenever you define a method, it should be implemented. Otherwise, that is the first syntax error will come. Okay, let me at least do a empty implementation. Method instance method 2 in method static method 2 in method. Okay, so now check it. So no syntax error because instance method accept instance method as well as static method, but static method accepts only static methods, no instance. So it's very strict. So reference me can exist only with the instance method. Okay, so comment it. Okay, so here the issue was this is a static method, right? So let me go ahead with the class name. Class 2. Yep. Now it's clear. Okay. So these are very basic understanding about static and instant. So don't implement anything, just play around with the static and instance attribute as well as method. Then you'll get in some ideas of when or how we can call the static within a method or not, whether the attribute can be called using a class or object. So the updated values are carry forward to the entire class or not. So everything you just come to know with very basic simple examples. Okay, just play around with this and let me know if you have any doubt on this. Okay, so the next would be method parameters. Let me have another program. Class 3 executable program, save it. Class 3 definition in class public section. Okay, and methods. So now you're good with instance and static method, so you can go ahead with this. Get material, control space bar. I'm going to use importing option. So importing, there are two things, call by value, call by reference. Now I go with call by value. I'm getting material type. The basic naming convention would be IM for importing, EX for exporting, CH for changing, RT for returning. It can be changed based on your client naming convention as well. So importing, I'm getting material type, MAMTART, data element. Okay, and next one I'm go with plant. So IM works. Okay, so there is no bracket. IM plant type works underscore D. So this is called by value and this is called by a reference. Okay, I can say I don't want to use as a mandatory. I can say optional, meaning whenever you're going to call this method, you have to pass a mandatory value, mandatory parameter called empty type, and this plant is optional. So it depends on your requirement. You can pass or you can skip it. Okay, so this is for importing and exporting. So there is no comma separated. Okay, exporting, value, I'm sending my net value. So currently I go with only variables, no internal tables or work area. You can have it as well. Net GW. Okay. So let's go one by one. Okay. So this is the method parameters, importing and exporting, very simple method parameters. So let me implement my method first. Class 3 implementation method get material. So this is going to be a normal select single ntgw from Mara into, okay, it should be ex because this is exporting variable, right? So ex into ex ntgw where mtart is equal to material type. So when your plant is not available in Mara, it needs some inner join, so forget about it. Anyway I made it as optional, that's fine. And end method and end class. Okay, my processing block is done and I'm going to create the object. This is an instance method, so I need to create the object. Okay, let me do one thing. I'll keep the processing block at the end of my program. So I don't want to use start of selection here. So directly I'm going to create an object for a class with the help of new keyword and close it. Okay. Now I'm going to call the method. So here, like at least before the tooltip was introduced, we had to type it manually. So local class is a little difficult, especially to call the method with more parameters. But now it's very simple because you have the control space bar. It will tell you actually what are the methods available. So here it shows the method get material. So keep the cursor over there. Okay, control space and keep the cursor. It shows some more details about what kind type of method it is, what is the import parameter, export parameter, which is optional, which is mandatory, everything. So just select it. So it'll give like this only. Again, you just do a control space bar. Again, it shows the same thing, press enter. Then it will give all the information over here. Okay, so let me pass hard-coded value. If you feel this is optional, so it's commented by default. Excuse me. If you feel to be a runtime value, have a parameter and pass the parameter variable over here. Okay, and another advantage for class and method is you can on the flow you can declare the variable. So if it is a variable or work area or an internal table, based on that it creates a medium for your requirement. Okay, so that is a added advantage for the class. Normally it is not happening on the flow declaration is not happening in the function module return parameters, but it's happening in the oops return parameters. So that is an added advantage. So execute it. Okay, I need to write it. LVNTGW. I'm not sure if there is any value in the system. Let's see. Activate it. Okay, done. Execute. Yeah, there is some value. I use select single, so it takes the first value from the Mara table for the material type FERT. So this is a way to call or having an import or export parameter. Export parameter also can have call by reference, also can have more than one parameters. So export, I want BRGW type BRGW. So all the export parameters are optional. Okay, so either you can call it again or there is no refresh concept, so you have to call it again if you want to change in the structure level. Otherwise, if you're good, just type it. Okay, and here w local variable BRGW, and that should be changed in the implementation as well. So select single, this one BRGW into, so two export parameters ex underscore brgw. Activate OpenSQL. Okay, there is a at symbol at. So this will give a differentiate to the database layer. These are not database fields. These are applicable for application layer. So that might we need a escape, sorry, at symbol over here. Then execute it. So here it is. So this is the value for net and this is for gross. Okay. This is for import and export, and I have a changing as well. So changing is going to be a two-way communication. Changing and like type value. So let me go with value, call by value, changing value of ntgw, type ntgw. Okay, changing also you can have more than one. And okay, returning I'll come a little later. So here let me call it again, obj get material, again control space bar, get material. So here it comes changing at the end. So let me copy and paste it. Okay, and then I'm just passing the value, some value I have to pass. So changing, you are not able to hard code it. Okay, so changing it should be always a variable because it should receive the value. So it should be a variable. Okay, if I use any hard coded value, it shows very clearly no values passed to the mandatory parameter chntgw. But exporting is means class wise it's importing parameter accepts the hard coded value but not the changing one. Okay, so changing you have to fill the values. So let me delete this, otherwise it gets confused. Okay, yeah, here again control F2. So here this is the same issue. So field 100 cannot be modified, so you have to pass a value over here. So what I have to do is let me declare a local variable here, data lb tgw2 type ntgw. So I can say value 100. Okay, so I'm passing value 100 over here, lb ntgw underscore 2, and this is a changing parameter. So inside a method I need to implement some values for that changing parameter. So let me have that as ch underscore ntgw is equal to whatever is coming I'm adding with 100. So forget about logic. I want to explain how these things are working inside the method. Okay, now I can display that as well, lv netgw2. So the value is always 200. Execute. So here it is 19500, 2000, 20,000, and it's 200. So here it's dot as comma as dot based on the user profile. So forget about it. Clear? So this is for changing, and you can have returning as well in the same method. So there is no restriction. You can have only export, only returning. You can have any type of importing or exporting parameters for your method, but it depends on the requirement. You can choose whether we know to export and returning or only returning is fine, depends. Okay, so return as you see success, something I'm going to just go here, type character 10. And a return has to be only one value, so you can't have more than one. And return is always call by value, so there is no call by reference for it. It's just a return a value. It won't has a two-way communication. So here you'll get an error because in the red color, because return has only one value. So let me close this and let me pass a value for return as well. So return success is equal to x. Okay. Let me call the method once again. obj1. Sorry, not obj1. It's obj get material. Again, control space bar get material. So everything is here. So exporting us. Okay, let me better copy paste it. Only the return parameter is getting added. data local variable success on the flow declaration, and you can hear LVSUCCSS success. Okay, so nothing much difference in the output. Um, it's already declared. I think I didn't delete it. Okay, let me delete this. Okay, activate. It's done, executed. So now it's value for returning parameter. So another way of returning is, let me have another method. Suppose this method is always return just a value, only one value. So I'm going to keep a return instead of export parameter. It's like get, you can say customer details. Okay, so customer name, importing value im cust type KUNNR, and okay, no separator for your method parameters, always remember that. And I'm going to return the name of it, name of the customer. So returning value rt name, type name1. That's it. So do the implementation of the method in your class implementation. Method get customer in method. Okay, and here select single name one from KUNNR, sorry, KNA1 into return parameter RT name, where Kunar equal to at symbol import parameter Kunar. That's it. Okay, back toward it is all good. Get customer name. Okay, there is it. Okay, this is unknown KUNNR. What I have given. Okay, IM cust. Okay, let me have the same name over here. CUST. That symbol is missing. Okay, all good now. Now I'm going to call this method which returns only one value. So now what I'm going to do is here, okay, data of LV cust name equals objects control space bar. Now you have two methods, so display two methods over here. Customer name, control space bar, again press customer name. It asks what is the customer number. Let me figure out what is the values over here. KNA1 F8. Okay, let me take the first one. Control C. And the customer's value, customer number is this one. Okay, so if the method has a return parameter, then it won't display as like this, importing, changing, receiving, because it returns anyway one value at a time. So you can directly get or receive the value of the return parameter to a variable like this. So this is one advantage of returning parameter. Okay, so here I can say LV cust name. So whenever you see an existing code which receives the value to a variable, is nothing but the method has a return parameter. There is no export parameter, it's just a return parameter. So execute. So here it is. It comes what is the name of the particular customer. So these are the parameters of a method: importing, exporting, changing, and returning. So just play around with this, and if you have any doubt, please let me know. Thank you so much for your time. Probably we'll see in the next video. Thank you and bye bye.